Seems like lots of people are in long distance relationships today, but they're hard, right? 40% of them end in breakup. That was one of the more recent statistics. I've seen them higher than that before. And most don't last more than 5 months. So, what can you do to make sure that you have a long distance relationship that not only lasts, but you get through all the problems and it actually brings you guys closer together and you feel more connected and you feel like this is actually something that will last between you two? So, today I'm going to be talking about some of the biggest challenges and the biggest things that happen that are under your control in long distance relationships that you can kind of take a look at and make sure that you work on them so that they don't end up ruining your relationship and instead bring you guys closer together, make him want to be around you and crave you and miss you. So, hi, my name is Matthew Coast and welcome to Commitment Connection. So, what are some of the things, some of the reasons why long distance relationships fail, and what can you do in order to make sure that it doesn't happen? So, one of the big things that happens, number one, is smothering your partner. So, a lot of people feel like because they're in this long distance thing that they need to like be connected all the time. And so they try to always kind of connect with their partner, constantly messaging them, telling them about what's going on in their day and how things are and everything, keeping it's like a play by play. If you've ever watched sports before, which I don't do much, but if you do, they do like play by plays, and it's like you're giving them a play by play of your life. And you don't need to do that, right? You don't need to call, text, and video chat every single day, all day long. That's completely unnecessary, and people need space. And so what you want to do is give him some space instead. So if you never give him any space and you're trying to tell him what's going on with you all the time, or you're trying to figure out what's going on with him all the time, just stop doing that. And instead, you should give him some room to breathe. If you want him to think of you, make the time that you're together really great. And if you want to add something even more special onto it, what you can do is always just give him a gift of something, like some kind of item or something that will make him remember you and think of you every time that he sees it. And so you just, the time that you have together, you want that to be really great. That way, when you're gone, he misses you and he wants to be with you again and he's thinking about you. You don't need to stay connected all the time. Number two is false assumptions. So assuming that he's not into you, assuming because he needs space that there's something wrong, assuming that he's talking to other women, any of those kinds of things, right? And this partially is kind of a trust issue. And so if you can't trust him, you can't really have a relationship with him, especially a long distance relationship. You have to have a lot of trust when it comes to a long distance relationship, and relationships in general. You have to have a lot of trust there. And so if you can trust him and you know you can trust him, you feel like you can trust him, then do this instead. When you aren't with him and you guys aren't connected, what you should do is work on your beliefs of worthiness. So spend time shifting your belief systems around, change your beliefs into beliefs that, because you get to choose your beliefs. I don't know if you knew that or not, right? Beliefs aren't based on reality. Beliefs are based on strong emotional states that you're in, connected to a habitual thought process. So for instance, if you have a really strong emotion when you're a child that your mom or your dad doesn't really love you or something like that, that will start getting ingrained in you, and then you'll start feeling that way around other people, and that can start making you feel things like you're not really worthy of love. And all you have to do to get rid of it, and I say all you have to do because it sounds like it's a really easy thing, but sometimes it can be challenging, is to break that pattern and replace it with a new thought pattern that you emotionalize really strongly. And so that's what I suggest that you do. work on putting yourself into positive emotional states on a continual basis, change your thought patterns so that you have thoughts of being worthy, of being strong, of being somebody who deserves what it is that you want in your life. Get busy building and creating your life. Build an abundance of connection with people, with animals, with nature, with everything around you. So build an abundance of connection. Consistently put yourself into positive emotional states. Live a full, amazing life, right? If you want to be confident in your life, if you want to be confident in yourself, build a life that you're proud of, that you like, that you've created by design. You can do that. You have the power to do that, and you can do that anytime you want to. And the more that you do that, the more you'll have confidence in yourself, the more you'll believe that you can have whatever it is that you want in your life. So number 3 is financial issues. So long distance relationships can be incredibly expensive, especially depending on how far away from each other you guys live. And so someone usually has to travel to see the other person. Sometimes people do it where they go back and forth, right? One person goes and visits one person and the other person goes and visits the other person, because it can get really expensive really, really quickly with all the traveling and gas or plane tickets or however it is that you guys are meeting up with each other. And so one of the things that ruins everything is these expectations that you might end up having on the other person, and or the other person has with you. And so you think they're going to do this thing and they don't, or they think you're going to do this thing and you don't, or whatever. And then next thing you know, you guys have a bunch of strain and stress that doesn't necessarily even need to be there. And so the best thing that you can do is talk about these issues beforehand and find out how he feels about everything and what's going on with him. That way you can make sure that you've talked about things and you've worked things out and you've created clarity around it so that it doesn't end up blowing up in your face. Also, make sure that you're flexible around your expectations and don't get all caught up in how something has to look and how something's supposed to be and all that kind of stuff, because that just creates stress in you. And so you want to also, you can do like low cost ways of connecting with each other. I recommend that if you're in a long distance relationship, that you guys meet up at least once a month. If it's going to be over a long-term period of time, you guys should at least meet up once a month, if not at least a month and a half. I mean, you don't want to go much further than that, because things can start dying out and it can be really, really difficult to hold on to that and keep things going. And so you can find low-cost ways to connect, right? Video chat is available anywhere in the world at this point. Another thing you want to do is try to be more low maintenance than, expecting a whole bunch, like we talked about expectations. And so having lots of expectations might end up making him feel like he can't really afford to be with you and spend time with you and be in this long distance relationship, especially if you expect him to be the provider and to financially take care of everything. And then he's like, I don't know if I can do this. I'm trying to build this thing, but now I'm with this woman and it costs so much in order for me to be in this relationship with her. I don't know if I can really do this or not. And so another thing that you want to do is, if you end up spending some money on the relationship and things that are going on, don't blame your partner for it, because that just brings ill will and resentment and can create even more and more and more problems between the two of you. So number 4 is negative emotional experiences. So this looks like being a Debbie Downer all the time, right? You don't want to be a Debbie Downer all the time. Fighting, arguing, trying to force him to do stuff that you want him to do. Those things also just create tons of negative emotions all the time. Like, you don't have to be happy all the time. Like, I want to throw that out there. It's not about being happy and having a fake smile on your face and just trying to pretend like you're happy all the time, right? We all have issues. We all get mad. We all get sad. We all get frustrated. We all get into our minds and have nonsense come up about what's going on and what should be and what shouldn't be and all that kind of stuff. And so it's not that big of a deal if those things end up coming up with you and all that kind of stuff. You just don't want to make that the main focus of your relationship, because some couples, what'll end up happening is the woman will want to trigger the guy because she wants some kind of emotional reaction because it shows that he cares. And so she'll trigger him through negative emotions, but that just pushes the guy away because he goes, oh, I don't want to be around that. And every time I talk to her, she's trying to, elicit these negative emotional responses from me. And it's bad. Don't do that. So that is very bad. Next is emotional and draining behavior, right? So baiting him for compliments, to trying to get him to tell that he still likes you and everything's okay and all that kind of stuff, right? It's just cringe, super emotional, draining type of stuff. And if you do that a lot with a guy, it'll make him feel like he doesn't have the emotional capacity to be around you and to be with you all the time. And that can be a really, really big pain for him. And like I said, you don't have to be happy all the time. Good feelings don't just include being happy or being smiley or whatever, right? Good emotions are actually a range of different emotions. And if you're experiencing those emotions, but you're on the same side, you're in partnership as opposed to being disconnected, as opposed to being separate. If you're instead in partnership, then going through those emotions actually bond you guys closer together and make you feel like you're actually closer and you're in this together and you're sad together or you're angry together or whatever, as opposed to it being, I'm angry at you because you're not doing what I want you to do. And so you're the problem and all that kind of stuff, right? And so if you can, you want to be on the side of partnership. It doesn't always work out that way. Everybody, has issues and we all do stuff that we kind of regret sometimes. And so it's not that big of a deal, but you want to have a range of positive emotional experiences between the two of you, and you don't want to dwell on the negative experiences because that will just end up tearing the relationship apart. And number 5 is boring or dull experiences. So this is kind of it's not the opposite, right, of the negative experiences. It's kind of this flat line, right? It's a flat line feeling where it's just boring and dull and there's nothing going on. And what it ends up doing is it makes it feel like a chore to interact and be in contact, because it's like, okay, I'm just going to talk and then we're just going to say the same thing. Hey, how are you? How are you? How was your work? How was your work? Everything's great. And so, yeah, okay. So what else is going on? Right. And it's boring. Right. And it makes him feel like he'd rather be doing something else, anything else with his time. Right. And so you want to make things more interesting. And like I've said in other videos and stuff before, it's a two-way street, right? You shouldn't be doing everything for the relationship. It's both ways. You guys both should be contributing to this. And if you're not just naturally by nature like a fun and playful and kind of got interesting things going on and know how to make things interesting, one of the things that you can do to make things interesting pretty quickly is play word games. And so word games are things like the game Would You Rather, right? And all Would You Rather is taking two different things and then comparing them and saying, which one would you rather do? Like, and you can do it without even saying would you rather. All you have to say is like coffee, tea, right? Or you can say, would you rather drink coffee or would you rather drink tea, right? And then you have a game based on that. And then you can move on to the next one, right? And he can play those games with you as well, right? Would you rather eat cereal or an omelet? Would you rather, play golf or watch golf, right? Would you rather play sports or watch sports? Would you rather eat chocolate or eat vanilla, right? And it's one of those things where you can just play with that for a while. You can get really creative with it and a lot of fun with it. I've talked about this on my blog quite a bit. I've a few different blog posts just about games like this, word games that you can play just like this. Next, what you want to do is learn more about him, right? Ask him questions, get curious. This makes him feel like he's closer to you because he is communicating with you and telling you things. And the more somebody can communicate and tell you, the more that they feel like they've been vulnerable and they've been opened up and they're talking to you and they're giving you information. And so that makes them feel more connected to you, which is a really good thing. Another one is getting off the call on a high note. So if you guys have had a really good call, sometimes what people will do is they'll just hold on to the conversation and try to keep it going. And they're like, oh, I don't want to get off. Let's talk about something. And you don't need to do that. I mean, you can if you want to, if you are pretty confident that you can turn it into something where you're connecting. But it's best to just get off on a high note. If things are good, then you're just like, all right, let's end it right here and talk again whenever you're going to be talking again in a few days or whatever it is. Number 6 is having no planned physical meetup. And so you never know when you're going to meet up with each other. And if you have no plan, and it may never end up happening. And so it ends up, the whole relationship ends up dying out, and you're just like going with it and you're not sure where it's going to go or if it's going to happen. And you're just like, I don't know, are we even still dating here? Are we not dating here? Are we in a relationship? And the anticipation dies and you slowly drift away from each other until you're no longer talking because you're not even going to meet up and you have no plans to meet up. And so both of you think the other person isn't really serious about this. And this usually happens when the idea of being together is bigger than the reality of making it happen. And so it can also happen when you guys just don't talk about it. So make sure that you guys talk about it, have a plan, get curious about it, have a conversation about it, see when you guys want to meet up, and make sure that you have a plan to actually meet up. So number 1 is smothering your partner. Number 2 is false assumptions. Number 3 is financial issues. Number 4 is negative emotional experiences. Number 5 is boring and dull experiences. And number 6 is no physical meetup planned.